We're going to finish. We're going to start the next phase of the evening here. So when you guys are ready, let me know. We'll get started. Me. The next phase is me. Yeah. Never mind. How was dinner? Did you like it? I want to give a shout out to Daniel. He's behind there doing something right now, and his crew for how they hustled and got dinner in and out and desserts in and out. They did a great job. And I want to thank also Priscilla. Where is Priscilla? You're back behind. There she is. And Manuel over there. These guys are working hard. Let's take care of these guys tonight, please, okay? And I also want to thank my brand new friend, Neil. Yeah. Honorary Submariner tonight. No. I was handed a note a few minutes ago that Captain Tom Bond and son, Rear Admiral Hank Bond, USN retired, sends his greetings. He lives in Colorado Springs. Yes, yeah. Commander Bond was my CO. He was a great man. I was, what he had to do, what he put up with, right? But he was a good man. He was a very good man. This is, by my estimation, the 5th reunion. We had a reunion in San Diego in 2004. We had one in 2006 in Waynesburg, Virginia, my hometown. We had one in 2009 in Groton, Connecticut. That was a good one. Yes, that was good. We marched on the 4th of July. Old Barker actually got a little weepy that night. That was, yeah. We had a reunion in 2015 in Cape Canaveral, Florida. Now that one, that was an interesting one because there was already a sub-bit regional convention, Southeast region, thank you, that was going on. And so I called and said, can I bring some guys? They said, well, yeah, sure, no problem. It turned out we had full 1/3 of the people that were at that convention were from the John Marshall. They were so grateful that we were there. Yeah. And now here we are, 2018 in San Antonio, Texas. And there is some talk about the next reunion, and we'll get into that later. First, we have to find the next guy to do it, and then we'll. Yeah. So I'm gonna talk for a few minutes before I introduce our guest speakers. We have two former commanding officers here that I have a lot of pride and respect for. And but before we get to that, I want to tell you a little bit about myself. 47 years ago, I made a decision that would affect me for the rest of my life. I believe for the better. I enlisted in the Navy. I was in my 3rd semester of junior college, maintaining the same stellar C average I had when I was in high school. I believe I was taking Chemistry 101 for the 3rd time. And balancing equations and moles per liter, that might as well have been in Greek for me, okay? I never got that whole balancing equation thing. But then after taking a few simple aptitude tests at the Navy recruiter, they looked at one another with counterfeit amazement and announced, wow, this guy's eligible for any school we have in the Navy. I said, bring it on. I mean, I don't know if you remember, but there was like pictures of 3D pictures of blocks, and you had to figure out how many were in there. Remember? My daughter could do that. I mean, my daughter's brilliant. She could do that. Yeah, exactly. I didn't realize till many years later that there were many critical components necessary to build and maintain the 3rd and most successful element of the nuclear triad. And the nuclear triad, just so you remember, is the 3-pronged military force structure that consists of A, land-launched nuclear missiles, B, nuclear missile-armed submarines, and C, strategic aircraft with nuclear bombs and missiles. Okay? So we were part of the 3rd leg of that triad, and I think the most successful one. Most survivable, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there was actually a Russian or Soviet Union admiral or general. He said, we never knew where the submarines were. We never knew where they were. But, and so the United States Navy submarine service needed not only state-of-the-art nuclear propulsion systems, complex and sophisticated weapons delivery systems, and proven sub-safe systems, the Navy also needed sailors, right? It is somewhat surprising that the same concepts in academia that I struggled with in college seemed to come pretty easy to me once I got to nuke school. I never could figure that out, but I picked right up on it. It's my opinion that one of the most critical elements of the Cold War program was the selection, training, and qualification of the young men and women needed to operate and maintain the complex equipment and administrative programs. I mean, that was I mean, you could build submarines, right? And you talk about nuclear power school, but the attrition rate was what, 75%? I mean, they were just throwing people in there to see who came out the other end, right? I should look over here a little bit more, I'm sorry. And so I'm very proud to have a Cold War veteran bumper sticker on my car. I mean, that was, we did it. We did it. I mean, we did that, right? You think about this, the first of the 41 for Freedom submarines was completed was the George Washington on 30 December 1959, okay? The final boat to enter service, the 41, was the Will Rogers, commissioned on April 1st of 1967. And then these 41 boomers were superseded by the submarines of the Ohio class from 1980 to 1992. But here's the deal. America built and launched 41 submarines in 8 years. 8 years for 41 boats. That's like 5 submarines a year, okay? That's an incredible accomplishment when you think about it. I'm sure. I got a calculator right here, okay? Yeah. Well, that's just it. When I went into junior college, one of the first classes you had to take was slide rule technique. This was before the TI 57s or whatever. The teacher had this slide rule that was like 6 feet long, and he would slide that thing back and forth. But I'm also very proud to have served. I'm proud to have served on a ship that was selected to be converted from SSBN to SSN with an eventual lifespan of 30 years, okay? It is my opinion that the crews that operated and maintained the 611 over those years helped to maintain her in a readiness condition that made this extended life possible, okay? We're the ones that kept that boat together, okay? And because of that, she was selected for conversion to slow, I can't say slow attack, slow approach, thank you, slow approach. Yeah, I know, okay, I got it. Not so fast attack. Sometimes I regret leaving the Navy after 7 years, but it's better to look ahead and prepare than to look back with regret. A few years ago, I first heard the phrase one-termer, which is a person that stays in the military for only their first obligated term. That was me. I did 7 years, but I did not re-enlist after that. But now, here with you guys, I feel like I'm still serving, okay? No, I'm serious. Organizing these reunions it's time-consuming and sometimes frustrating. But my belief is thank you. My belief is that the men that served on the 611, especially those here tonight, have earned the respect of a grateful nation, and myself included. Okay, I am proud to be a member of this exclusive fraternity. And until the day I'm called away on eternal patrol, I will remain convinced that my service in the Navy submarine service, and especially on the John Marshall, is one of the most significant contributions to the United States that a man can make. And I believe that. I believe that. I believe that very firmly. Yeah. Yeah, good. Let's talk about some people that we want to thank tonight. First of all, the staff of the El Tropicano Hotel. Okay, these guys These guys have taken good care of us, you know, and that hospitality suite is unbelievable. I would like to thank Roger and Jeanette Barker. They coordinated the banquet dinner. They kept the hospitality suite stocked with provisions and ordered T-shirts for us to get, okay? Very nice T-shirts. Thank you. I would like to thank Don Frank for organizing the raffle tonight. Excuse me, raffles. There's 2 raffles, okay? There's raffle tickets for merchandise on the table up there, and there's a 50-50 raffle, okay? It's got a lot of money in it. I would like to thank Mickey and Debbie Waymeyer for printing the name badges. Yeah. I again want to thank Roger Barker and Jake Davis for paying for that beautiful ice sculpture down there. And maybe most importantly, I would like to thank the Silver Eagle Distributors of San Antonio, Texas for donating 10 cases of beer. Our contact here, Anthony Valdez, approached Don and he said, yeah, have you talked to anybody about making a donation? No. Call these guys. Tell them you got a military reunion going on. He called them and they said, okay, 10 cases, come pick them up. Yeah. Yeah. And I also want to recognize, make sure I get this right, Chief David Shelley, right here. If you go down to the hospitality suite, downstairs, there's a booklet for the commissioning of the 611, and his name is in there, okay? He's a plank holder. We're going to do a little exercise we did a couple of reunions before in the past, and we're going to read the ship's history in about 14 different segments, okay? And each guy's going to have his segment that he's been asked to read, okay? But the first one is Mr. Shelley. You got this paper? Oh, he's got it.
Okay. I've got a whole list of things here to tell you all. First of all, I want to set something straight. I was Chief Shelley when I left the Marshal. Since then, I became Master Chief Shelley. Okay. Some of the history of the John Marshall. The keel was laid on 4 April 1960, Newport News Shipbuilding and Dry Dock Company in Newport News, Virginia. I got there shortly after. I don't know exactly when it was I got there. But anyway, she was launched on 15 July 61. She was still dry when I reported aboard. And the launch was sponsored by Robert F. Kennedy, Mrs. Robert F. Kennedy, wife of the Attorney General of the United States. The Marshal was commissioned on 21 May 62 with Commander Robert W. Secker commanding the Blue Crew. And at that time I was attached to the Blue Crew. I made the Blue Crew shakedown after commissioning, and I guess they needed another new QT and the Gold Crew, so I was transferred to the Gold Crew. Anyhow, after that, I made the relief of the blue crew. I was gold crew. We relieved when we relieved the I was attached to the gold crew when the gold crew relieved the blue crew for the first time. Made we made the refurb after we took care of all the things that the blue crew found, and we made our shakedown all right. I was still aboard on the gold crew with Captain Donovan. He was captain of the boat then. By chance is he here? He was commander of the bin, and I ran into him. I ran into Donovan. A little while later, I was on another ship. There'd been a lot of water passed by the Marshall since I was on there. Anyway, we made the shakedown after the upkeep, and the XO called me into his stateroom. My enlistment was fixing to expire. My extension. I had a 2-month extension in order to make the full patrol. And it was about to expire. And this is a good time to tell you, every time I get to talking about something serious in my life, I get all puckered up and almost cry aloud. But anyhow, he called me into the stateroom. We had not yet actually started on the 2-month patrol. He says, "Shelley, pack your bag, you're going home." And the next time I saw Captain Donovan, he says, "Shelley, what are you doing up here?" I was Nuki T when I left the blue crew, and after the XO called me into the stateroom at that time, he says, "You're going home. Your wife has been diagnosed with cancer." And so I went home. Home was Buffalo, New York. It was a while before I got there. When I got there, the wife was sitting outside the hospital, and her doctor treating her for cancer of the esophagus. Doctor was with her, and the doctor told me something. I don't know what it was. I've had a stroke since then, and my memory has been wiped out. A lot of things. Anyhow, I asked the doctor. I said, "Well, what's next?" He says, "Nothing. We're done. Take her home." Turned out, I thought they had it fixed. Turned out they had just done everything they could. I ended up getting a job there in the Buffalo, New York area. The company that I went to work for had financial problems, and they couldn't pay me for a couple of months that I worked with them. And I had not yet retired. I retired in '73. But anyhow, I had not yet retired, so I had to get another job, so I re-enlisted. I asked for Marshall back, and they said no. They didn't say why, but they sent me to Dam Neck, Virginia, to study the navigation computer. And that's the reason that Donovan says, "Well, you up here, Shelley?" I was attached to the navigation center at that time, instead of the nuclear work. I've not been in contact with him since. Anybody know where Donovan is now? How about the XO that made that first patrol? Anyway, while I was in Dam Neck studying that computer, I had my wife and 2 kids with me. And when I graduated, they transferred me to the von Steuben in Newport News, Virginia. And about then, I got my ailing wife in the Army hospital, not far from Newport News. And I was able to visit her every night for the next few weeks. And finally, 1964, she passed away. And while I was going to the school, I had another Navy wife that was watching my 2 kids while I was going to school. And when the von Steuben found out I was widowed with 2 kids, they said, "You need some sword duty." So they sent me to 1-year humanitarian sword duty in Dam Neck. They sent me back to the same school I had just graduated from, but I was going to teach this one. Yeah.
Can I finish?
And what's the rest of this little deal? Let me see.
No, it's done, Dad.
Okay.
Dave over here.
Oh, it's on the floor here. Can you pick it up for me? Yeah. Thank you.
All right, Dad. You ready?
2010, I had a stroke. Yeah.
I love you, Dad. Proud of you. Let's go back.
I got more here.
I think you finished.
I got more here.
No, you finished, Dad.
All right.
You talked about Robert Donovan and the
Okay.
commanding gold crew.
Okay.
I thought you were talking about the cleanup crew for a
I
minute.
got some
but-
more stuff. Okay. All right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, you guys want to talk to my dad? Feel free to come by. We're over here. He'd love to talk to as many people y'all want. All right. Thank you, sir. Let's go back, Dad.
Oh, by the way, on the stroke, they worked on me for 6 days in the hospital up in, where was it? Let me see, San Angelo. And then they asked my wife and I had another wife by then. And they asked her and me whether they wanted me to die, whether we should die in San Angelo Hospital or at home. So they sent me home to die. My Methodist pastor just happened to be there, you know. He prayed to Jesus. Here I am, 8 years later.
That's right. Let him come by and tell him the rest of the story. Come on, Dad. I got your wheelchair right here, Dad.
Yeah.
Come by.
Okay. My son from the first wife is going to escort me back to the table.
All right. Sit down right here, Dad.
84, yes?
Yes, sir.
84.
It's the only time I get to push my dad around.
We're going to continue with the ship's history. I believe Mr. Vetch, is he here? Where is he? Yes, sir. I'm ready. Go ahead. No, you can do it from there. We'll just do it from our location. You got to speak up. That's all. Thank you. And where's Thornhill? All right. All right, so here we go. We're going to do it. Let's do it. There we go.
Hi, good evening, gentlemen and ladies. We are going to talk tonight about the time from 4 April 63 to 30 April 66. The Blue and the Gold crew conducted a total of 17 deterrent patrols from Holy Loch, Scotland. On 13 December of 1966, the John Marshall started her first major overhaul at Newport News Shipbuilding. The overhaul was completed in April of 1968. After the post-overhaul shakedown, she loaded ballistic missiles at Charleston, South Carolina. And in September 1968, she began her 18th deterrent patrol. She conducted her 19th through 25th deterrent patrol from Holy Loch between October 1968 and June of 1970. In June 1970, she became a unit of Submarine Squadron 16 and began operations out of Rota, Spain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom Kelly. Tom Kelly, there he is.
Tom Kelly. I was a quartermaster on the Gold crew from 71-72. John Marshall conducted her 26th through her 37th deterrent patrols out of Rota, Spain. She was awarded the first meritorious unit commendation as a result of an operation conducted in March of 1971 that demonstrated the effectiveness and dependability of the Fleet Ballistic Missile System. While fired by the Blue crew, the missile had been maintained by the Gold crew. But no, we know. Yeah, it wasn't in the original text. But in June of 1973, the Marshall returned to New London, Connecticut for a dependence cruise, then conducted 2 additional deterrent patrols from Charleston, South Carolina.
Thank you, sir. This is not Calvin. Anybody but Calvin. Dr. Adams.
Hi, I'm Kevin Adams. I served on John Marshall from 1973 to 1978 in the A Division, and the part I'm going to talk about, I was there for. On November 1st, 1974, John Marshall began her second refueling overhaul at Maryland Naval Shipyard in Vallejo. During the overhaul, the missile system was converted to support Polaris A-3 missile. The overhaul was completed in May of 1976, and many of us were there. And after a successful DESO in Cape Canaveral and a couple of trips through the Panama Canal, she commenced strategic deterrent patrols in February 1977 as a unit of Submarine Squadron 15. I think many of it, this is not on the script, but I think many of us remember going to Guam, back and forth, going through the hut, having our sea bags inspected for pornographic materials and other items that were not appreciated by the Navy at that time. Yep. John Marshall conducted her 40th through 54th deterrent patrols from Apra Harbor in Guam. Her final deterrent patrol was conducted with her arrival at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii on December 28, 1980.
Hi, I'm Bill Swanson. I served on the Marshall from 80 to 84. We completed our reclassification to attack submarine, affectionately known as slow approach, on 12 January 1981, given the hull number SSN, still 611. She began operations as a fast attack, slow approach, from Pearl Harbor. We offloaded missiles in Bangor, Washington on 1 June 1981. John Marshall, then we transferred through the canal one more time, and we went to Charleston, South Carolina. On July 20th, 1981, began operations as a unit of Submarine Squadron 4. On December 28th, 1981, we departed for her first deployment to the Mediterranean. The deployment included several major fleet exercises, visits to La Madeleine in Italy, Naples, Italy, Tangiers, Morocco, Lisbon, Portugal. This wasn't a scenic cruise, by the way. Just thought I'd let you know that. She did return to Charleston on 21st of May, 1982, 20 years to the day after she was commissioned.
I'm Dave Goforth. I was on the Marshall from 75 to 79. And what I'm going to talk about wasn't while I was there. But in September 1983, John Marshall was again transformed to the Pacific Fleet and arrived at Puget Sound on 29 September to start her third overhaul. She was modified to support operations. This included the installation of additional troop berthing and a removal of some ballistic missile tubes and the bases, and the conversion of other missile tubes to storage of equipment. She was also fitted with 2 dry deck shelters, DDSs, abaft, and I had to look this word up. Abaft, yeah. Abaft her sail. Well, it's a double thing because it means after the sail. So anyway, these, which house SEAL team swimmer delivery vehicles, allow her to act as a SEAL mothership. Post-overhaul sea trials were conducted in September of 1985, and the John Marshall joined the Submarine Squadron 5 in Norfolk, Virginia in November of 1985.
Charlie, you're on.
Charlie Hansberger. I was a Navy T from August of '63 to September of '65, and so 21 years after I got out, why on December 15th, 1986, John Marshall began her transit for her second deployment to the Mediterranean Sea. The deployment included several exercises and a demonstration of her unique special warfare capability and visits to Toulon, France, La Maddalena, Italy, and she returned to Norfolk, Virginia on May 29th, 1987. Charlie.
Where is the big man? There he is.
I'm Bill Scow. I was a Navy T on the boat from 1978 till 1981 or 1980. Late, I took the boat from the last patrol from Guam to Pearl Harbor. My previous service, I was on USS Daniel Webster. Then I got on the USS Theodore Roosevelt, and then the Marshall, and then I completed my submarine career on the USS Florida. The Florida, on 1 May 1989, after conducting a variety of exercises with aircraft carrier battle groups and other submarines, John Marshall departed for her third Mediterranean deployment. It was the first time a submarine had deployed anywhere in the world with 2 dry deck shelters on board. Adding to the unique flexibility and endurance of the fleet commander for special warfare operations, embarked with John Marshall, departed Norfolk, was the largest special warfare detachment in the Atlantic and the Mediterranean. This was an extremely important time in the transition of the SSBN to the SSN and a new way of fighting that we continue today. On the SSBN that I was on, the Florida, my son served on the SSGN Florida 29 years after I had served on Florida. So I have the unique that I was on the submarine and my son got to serve on the same submarine. He's a nuclear reactor operator on the Florida right up till there. Now he's in Squadron 20. But the things that they set up and the mission that we have now with the SSGNs extended the life of our submarines, and a lot of people say they're just floating hotel for sills, but the way that we get our money for the sub and the thing like that is based on how we deploy them. I guess we won the Cold War with this SSBNs, but the SSGNs are in the fight today, and they're a formidable force. Who's the guy with the dark hair? Yeah, no. Where's the beard? Beard. Get beard. All right. Can't hear you. Come on up here, man. Sorry. Sorry. Not accustomed as I am.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jim Pierce. I served with the Marshal from 1973 to 1976. I was a member of the Electrical Division. This is one story that I'm not aware of because it happened long after I left. During the 1989 deployment, John Marshall's response to contingency operations providing forward area support of a unique nature on extremely short notice, as well as her success in anti-submarine warfare operations, was recognized in the award to John Marshall of the Meritorious Unit Award Commendation. John Marshall returned to Norfolk in September of 1989.
Thank you.
All right, I'm John Dickerson. I served on the Marshall from 1977 in December, started my career with them, and left in about May of 1980. Right after we went out, come into the dry docks and stuff. Captain Alexander was with us on that. We did that little stint. And I left her and went to the first Trident submarine, the Ohio. I think I was the first one from the Marshall to get to the Trident program. And thank yous to Captain Oliver and to Captain Alexander for endorsing me for that. Also, I went from there to the USS Shark, where I ended up at, and I saw the Marshall pull into La Madalena in 1986, and I mean, it just brought tears to my heart, you know, to see my boat that I qualified on first tied up to the boat that I was on, ended up on. So Marshall is always special in my heart. And since I'm a retired senior chief storekeeper now, we're going to have RPPO training shortly after this. So report downstairs to the classroom, and we will start RPPO training and get supplies under control. If it wasn't for us storekeepers, none of you could do your jobs. What's that? John Marshall conducted 3 special warfare training exercises in the Caribbean Sea in 1990, including a highly successful exercise that featured the employment of submarine-launched mobile mines. On 26 January 1991, John Marshall departed Norfolk for her 4th and final deployment to the Mediterranean. Equipped once again with 2 dry dock shelters, she operated in direct support of Operation Desert Storm and provided significant capability options to the United States 6th Fleet Commander. She visited Toulon, Gibraltar, and La Madalena, returning to Norfolk on 22 June 1991. To the Marshall.
Hey, I'm Bob Mock. I was the Navigation Department Chief on board from 89 to 92. And I just want to tell you, this is my first reunion, but talking to a lot of y'all folks, I started on my submarine duty on the Abraham Lincoln in 76, so we were all in Guam together, a lot of us. So in September 91, John Marshall served as the flagship for the largest submarine special warfare exercise since World War II. Over 191 personnel, including 3 flag officers, U.S. Navy SEALs, and United States Army Special Forces team. It was actually the Army Combat Divers, embarked to conduct joint special operations during Exercise Phantom Shadow. I guess we can say that now, right? Yeah. At the time that we did that, it was kind of, they said, hey, don't say Exercise Phantom Shadow, so so here we are, we're getting ready, we're loading up stuff on the pier, and there's these mines that they're rolling down the pier with like 8-foot letters that say Phantom Shadow, Naval Intelligence. All right. So just as a side note, actually, this was the very first launch from the sale of a Stinger missile on a submarine. So can you imagine being a ASW helicopter with variable dipping sonar, and the submarine surfaces, and the guys get the chubbies thinking, hey, we've caused this guy to surface, and they pop up and shoot him down with a Stinger missile? Pretty good. All right.
Good evening. I'm Lou Folk, and I'm an A-ganger, and it's I feel kind of like it's an Alcoholic Anonymous meeting here. I have to admit that I was an A-ganger. I'm proud of it, and I was on board the Marshall from 76 to 80. I made patrols 40 through 50 even, and when I first was assigned to the Marshall, she was still doing the missile stuff over on the other side of the world, and I reported to the off-crew office and was given the rough, tough job of cutting the grass at Ford Island for 2 months. I made sure that it was never taller than 3.5 inches, and I did not want to lose that job. I did Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock to like 11. Monday through Thursday. I had Friday, Saturday, Sunday off. But it was tough, but somebody had to do it. So I have the saddest part here, the last part, as John Marshall transited to the Pacific in early '92 to begin deactivation at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, where she was decommissioned and stricken from the Naval Vessel Register on 22 July '92. She was disposed of through the Nuclear Power Ship and Submarine Recycling Program on 29 March of '93. Thank you, and it's an honor to be here tonight with you guys and ladies. It's very nice.
Well, that went well. Thank you, everybody, for reading. I'm very grateful for that. I'm going to make a quick pitch for sub vets, okay? I'm a member of the sub vets. Obviously, I got the vest, right? They do an incredible amount of work. Now, the base that I belong to is quite a ways away, so I don't get to as many meetings as I would like. But I would like to make a pitch for sub-vets. Now, the fee to join and maintain your dues is not very much, and once you realize what they're involved in and what they do, it's an incredible organization. I'm proud to be a member of sub-vets. The USSVI Creed. The Creed says is to perpetuate the memory of our shipmates who gave their lives in the pursuit of their duties while serving their country. That their dedication, deeds, and supreme sacrifice be a constant source of motivation towards greater accomplishments. Pledge loyalty and patriotism to the United States of America and its Constitution. So, sub-vets, yes? Yes. Okay, so we have a couple guest speakers tonight. I wanted to first introduce Captain Herndon Oliver. Yeah. Captain Oliver, who's been to a lot of these reunions, actually. He's a reunion guy. He graduated from the Naval Academy at Annapolis, Maryland in June of '61. He served aboard the destroyer USS DuPont, which is DD-941, from '61 to '63, when he entered nuclear propulsion and submarine training. Captain Oliver served on the submarines Casimir Pulaski, 663, the Von Steuben, 632, and as XO on the Lewis and Clark, 644, prior to commanding the John Marshall 611 Gold Crew from '76 to '79. He commanded the submarine tender USS Proteus, home-ported in Guam from 84 to 86. Captain Oliver's shore assignments included Deputy Commander Sub-Squadron 15 at Guam, United States Pacific Command representative to the Joint Strategic Target Planning Staff at Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska, head Strategic Offense Branch of the Joint Staff in the Pentagon, and Plans and Program Branch head under the Navy's Director, Strategic Systems Program. He retired from the Navy in 1991. Captain Oliver's personal awards include the Legion of Merit, the Defense Meritorious Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Meritorious Service Medal with Gold Star, the Navy Commendation Medal with Gold Star, the Navy Achievement Medal, and various unit and service awards. It is with great pleasure I welcome Herndon Oliver.
Thank you all very much. I'd like to start off by just thanking Dave for doing another super job with the John Marshall reunion. My wife Connie and I have been to every one since 2006, and she sends her regrets this time. She had a knee replacement about a month ago and can't travel. Otherwise, she'd be here. I know a lot of you that we've seen over the years. You know her, and she knows you. And again, she's really sorry she can't be here. I'd like to just briefly actually give a little bit of a sea story. I think as all of us get further and further from operating at sea, making patrols and doing what we did, there's a tendency to maybe downplay the importance of what we did and diminish that in our minds. So let me tell you a little sea story. Back in the late 1980s, when the Soviet Union was collapsing and the wall was coming down in Berlin, our Joint Chiefs of Staff started a program of visiting the Russians, senior military over in Moscow, and then they would come back over and visit our Joint Chiefs in Washington. And I think the first one, our people went over there. The second one, they came back to Washington. But the Joint Chiefs of Staff were in the tank, which is the room in the Pentagon where the Joint Chiefs hold their meetings. And the Soviet General Staff people were there, and they're about to get started. And Marshal Akrameyev, who was the chief of the Soviet General Staff, walks over to the Chief of Naval Operations, who was Admiral Karl Trost. A lot of you know him. Submariner, wonderful guy. Marshal Akrameyev punches Trost in the dolphins and said, you're the damn problem. And what he meant by that was that the submarine problem was one they could never solve. They couldn't find our SSBNs. They knew that. We knew that. They knew our SSNs could find their SSBNs because they were reading our mail, thanks to the Walkers and Whitworth, the spy ring, if you remember that. And so, I mean, they couldn't find our guys, and they knew we could find their guys, and they never solved that. So, in summing up, when you think of the importance of what you all did out there, you won the Cold War. I think that's important, and I think you all ought to be very proud of that. Having been the featured speaker at all the reunions I've ever been to until this one, it's a pleasure for me to welcome Captain Ed Alexander here. Ed relieved me as Commanding Officer John Marshall on 30 April 1979. He operated the ship rest of their patrols, and then went through the conversion to an SSN and operated as SSN after that. Our paths crossed a lot over the years after John Marshall. I was the deputy at Squadron 15 when Ed was making patrols out there. We were both in Omaha together. I was the Pacific representative. He was the Atlantic representative across the hall. And then I finished up in Washington with the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Ed was in the Strategic and Theater Nuclear Weapons Branch, Op 65 on the CNO staff. So it's a real pleasure for me to see Ed again. We hadn't seen each other since we both retired in the early 90s, I think it was. And let me introduce Captain Ed Alexander.
I'm going to read your bio. Hang on. Okay. Hang on. I'm going to make you look good, okay?
Now there's a challenge.
Captain Edward Alexander was born in Nyack, Massachusetts, and graduated cum laude from mathematics from Tufts University in June of '61. Commissioned through the ROTC program, his first assignment was to the USS Basilone, DDE 824, as navigator. His subsequent tours of duty included mathematics instructor, U.S. Naval Academy, USS Theodore Roosevelt, SSBN 600, in which he qualified in 1967. He was the navigator on the Patrick Henry 599. He was the XO on the Robert E. Lee 601. He was the XO on the Roosevelt 600. He was the staff ComSub Pack assigned there as the SSBN Patrol Scheduling Officer. He was on the John Marshall Commanding Officer, where he combined crews, converted to SSN 611, changed home ports from Guam to Charleston, and then deployed to the Med. He was with Synclant representative to the Joint Strategic Target Planning Staff in Offutt Air Force Base in Omaha, Nebraska. He was the Plans and Programs Officer for Op 65 in the Pentagon. He was the Charles Lockwood Chair of Submarine Warfare at the U.S. Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. Captain Alexander retired in June of '61. After retirement, he attended the University of Arizona in Tucson, where he earned a PhD in mathematics in 1997. He taught at the university until full retirement in 2008. Thank you, Captain.
Well, you come last, and 3/4 of the things you have written in your notes have already been said. I'm told that after dinner speeches, like sermons, are enhanced by being brief. So I will try and be brief. I certainly would like to acknowledge that other people, Captain Oliver, who was twice commanding officer of Marshall and of Proteus, Paul Ferguson, who was CO of Sunbird, and we have a senator, I think, Senator Herpin from Colorado. And I acknowledge all of you. And I also would like to thank Dave Cosgrove for all the work that he and his people have put in to making this a success. John Marshall was a special boat. You've heard her history. 54 patrols as an SSBN, a whole bunch of operations as an SSN. It was quite a history. Over 1,200 dives, and it didn't say this in Wikipedia, but in accordance with a fairly well-known submarine rule, 1,200 and something surfaces also. My part of all this was in the middle. My crew made 3 patrols in the Pacific, and then we went to Pearl Harbor. We combined crews, which is an interesting evolution. Even though Blue Crew and Gold Crew ran the same ship, there were some differences that had to be worked out, and we did that quite successfully. We spent 6 weeks in dry dock replacing the shaft with nobody hurt in that 6 weeks, which I was kind of proud of. Then dumped the missiles in Bango, went down and took a somewhat unpleasant course in San Diego, went to the East Coast, deployed to the Med. There were other little things we did. We had a cookout on the missile deck while going through the Panama Canal, and we had swim call off Cuba. And I will say that going to the Med was a steep learning curve for everybody on board. It was the first time. You know, if you make patrols in the North Pacific, 5 contacts is what, a big week? You go to the Mediterranean and 5 contacts, well, you got 15 all the time. That, of course, was the best job I ever had, certainly in the Navy, probably in my entire career. After I was relieved of command from John Marshall, I had a couple of staff tours in which you probably are not interested. And then I taught at the War College for a while until I retired in 1991. Once out of the Navy, I returned to an old interest, mathematics, and went to the University of Arizona and got a degree. And then I taught there until I retired for good in 2008. The reason that's important for this little discussion is that the University of Arizona has an ROTC in it, and we had a model of the USS Tucson, and sometimes I'd be in a parade with the midshipmen from the university. And it was, of course, fairly well known that I'd had something to do with submarines in a previous existence, and other people, midshipmen and other people, would ask, why would anybody want to be on a submarine? Well, I suspect you all have your own answers to that. I mean, the pretty pin, the extra pay. Well, if they're going to give me submarine pay, I'll take it. But and the easy working hours and the living conditions. I mean, all those things. Let me tell you what my answer is, both to midshipmen and to the lady in Fredericksburg in the Five and Dime store, whose nephew is going to join the Navy, and we talked a little bit about being in submarines. The most important reason for being in submarines is you. The U.S. Navy hunts as best they can for the most talented and hardest working people they can find. They train them well, unlike the Soviet Navy. They train them well, and they send submarines. So when you report aboard a submarine, you're working with people who know what they're doing, who are working hard, and who are interested in doing it right, because there's something about 400 feet of water between you and the roof that makes you want to do it right. There aren't a lot of outfits where everybody cares. And that is my principal reason for being in submarines. Everybody works hard, does what they're supposed to. You have very few failures. I mean, if you think back, most of the people that you worked with were people that you would, come to a reunion and share stories with. Right? Right. Yes. It creates a bond that is unlike the bonds in very many outfits. There is also another group that rates some comment before I finish. And I'm going to start with a question. You wives out there, how many of you had the car break, the washing machine break, a call from the kid's school while your husband was in port? Yeah, everybody notices the sea of hands that went up, right? I mean, well, of course. Navy wives generally are pretty special, but submarine wives are even more so. When something bad happens to a wife, other wives gather around and make whatever it was go away. Like maybe you drove your husband's car through the wall of the Navy housing bedroom where your kids were sleeping. That one is a true story. And wives gathered around to consult with Navy housing, who was underwhelmed, and fix the kinds of things that needed fixing. So, see where I am. So I guess I should end by thanking you. I thank you for your service to me, Captain Oliver, and all the other people whom you served. I thank you for your service to the U.S. Navy and to the United States of America and to the world, because what we did kept the Cold War from turning hot, and everybody in the world owes you folks a real vote of thanks. God bless you all.
That's the quintessential hard act to follow right there. That's kind of the close of the tonight's program with a couple of follow-up, or just a couple of things. Yes, there's been a lot of talk about the next reunion. Yeah, I will help. I might probably do that, okay? But it's probably going to be 3 years, okay? Unless, maybe 2, but it's going to be a while, I mean, and here's the anecdote that I like to tell, There's a lot of people in this room that are retired. I'm not one of them, okay? I got a couple of years left, but I'm not one of them, And so, this is an excellent opportunity for a post-career position, to help support the reunion of this group. I do love doing what I do, and I am sincere when I say that I do this to give back to my brothers, and I'm very proud to be able to do that. So we're going to talk about that probably in the hospitality suite tomorrow. There's already a list up there that says where should the next one be, which is this huge debate that we always have. I will also share with you that Don Wilder is here. There he is. Don has graciously agreed to help rebuild our webpage. Yay! Which, if you think about it, would make this job a lot easier, okay? But he is, he's going to be working with some people to help get that restarted again. And so we thank you, Don, for in advance, okay? And that's essentially it, with a final activity being the raffles, plural, okay? And so, Don, Frank, how do you want to do this? You want to, oh yeah, hang on, wait, we got a special request from, Lieutenant Commander. This is the guy that everybody said was never going to stay in the Navy. Never, never, never.
That's true. Yeah, I did finally get one good conduct medal in 10 years. Okay, just to help the captains out with a couple of things here. If you could raise your hand for me, if you were qualified for this watch station on the John Marshall, and I know a lot of you have been on lots of boats, so, you know, other than the two skippers who were qualified everything. Okay, how many people were qualified officer of the deck on the John Marshall? Helm, Ferguson, Vetch, McKinney, Herpin? All right, there's a group. How many were qualified officer of the deck? Okay, how many were qualified engineering officer of the watch? All right, 1, 2 on John Marshall. Okay, so you're going to be port and starboard, guys. How many were qualified diving officer on the John Marshall? Oh yeah, we can see a whole batch of chiefs here. And first, commissioned officers don't count. You didn't stand dive, Ferguson. He could, but you stood dive. Okay. How many are qualified chief of the watch? All right, we got a whole bunch of people. How many were qualified engineering watch supervisor? All right. All righty. Yeah, EWS. All right. How many were qualified as chief of the boat on the John Marshall? Bob McCoy. All right, so we got a cob. All right, so let's go through, we'll do it backwards. Let's go aft to forward. Engine room supervisor. Oh, yeah, we got a ship pot of machinist mates. All right. Engine room upper level. Engine room lower level. The home of Mike Andrahovich. Machinery 2 lower level. Feed pump queens. How many were ELTs out of that group? Oh, yeah, that's when you stood watch. Auxiliary electrician aft. AEAs. Oh boy, we're not too many of them. EPCP, electric plant control panel. Oh yeah, there's a whole table full of them there. Right. Reactor operators, we got a whole table. Most reactor operators we've ever had at a reunion. Throttleman, gotta be a lot of electricians popping up. Manoski, yeah, geez. Auxiliary aft. A-gangers in the engine room, beware. Machinery 1 watch. O2 generators. All right. Up forward, torpedoman of the watch. 1. All right, torpedoman. Fire control technician of the watch. FTOW. FTOW. All right, we got a couple. Ailing, you were qualified, FTOW. Auxiliary electrician forward. Dieter, you got the watch by yourself, pal. All right, aux forward, auxiliaryman forward. Got a pot of them. Nav supervisor. Nav supervisor, the Nav ET fan room queen leader. All right, Nav ET of the watch. Okay. MCC. Pretty. Launcher. Yep. Missile Compartment Roving Patrol. In honor of the bees. Did anybody, some of you heard the story about Beasley. Beasley was one of our missile technicians. He used to wake me up by, I stood machinery on watch, so I slept in the missile compartment, and the bees would waltz over to my rack for wake up, and he would take my bunk curtain, that famous sound, shh, and say, "Child, time to get up. 5 minutes or the bees gets in." I was never late for watch. Never, ever. The bees married another guy, by the way, so. While on active duty. Captain Oliver's like starting to twitch, but. Okay, QMOW, Quartermaster of the Watch. Got to have at least one quartermaster. All right, good. Yeah, you got the watch first. Sonar Supervisor. All right. And Sonarman. Okay, now these are all the SSBN watches. Did I miss any watch station? What? Oh, Machinichu upper level. Yeah, that reactor operator guy that wandered around and caused trouble. How many Machinichu upper levels? All right. Yeah, I see you, biggins. All right. Did I miss any other watch station? Oh, yeah. How did I miss that? Radium in the watch. Tony DeBello. Richie Santamaro. Family grams, right? How many words? 30? 25. 25 words. And now, here on the internet. Underway. All right, I think I got them all. All right, skippers, we can get the ship underway.